Resume consideration on the address in reply to the speech from the throne. Resuming debate on the amendment of Ms. Ambrose.
Okay. On debate, the honourable member for Courtenay-Alberni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I get started, I want to make sure that I'm splitting half of my time with the member and my colleague from Essex. Thank you. As this is my first full speech in the House of Commons, I want to thank the great people of Courtenay-Alberni for electing me as their Member of Parliament. It's truly an honour to represent this great riding, which includes a large section of central Vancouver Island. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you've ever been to my home riding, but I'd like to take a moment to introduce you and the members of this House to the land and the people who live there. Then I will discuss some of the challenges they face as well as the opportunities we have in relation to the speech from the throne. I know many members here would champion their own riding as the most beautiful place in Canada. I'm confident that the physical geography found in Courtenay-Alberni has no equal. It starts at the beginning at Comox Valley in the islands, Mount Washington, which normally has the largest amount of snowfall in North America, and it stretches down through Oceanside, includes Parksville, Qualicum, Nanoose Bay, all beautiful beaches that we all know and care deeply about. It stretches across to the east side, Denman, Hornby, Lasqueti Island, and it crosses over the Alberni Valley, Mount Arrowsmith, to the Pacific Rim. It includes Long Beach National Park, the great beaches of Tofino, and the 10 Newchalmouth communities and the nation of Qualicum and part of the traditional territory of the Comox Valley Nation. My story, Mr. Speaker, and my riding dates back over 100 years, where my great-grandfather met my great-grandmother in Cumberland. Through my family and my community, I have deep understanding of this place, and I've witnessed the changes, the hardship and the victories we now have faced together, and the challenges we face today. The realities of some of the challenges and issues in our riding include climate change, which are being felt right across my riding. The previous Conservative government refused to acknowledge those realities, but all they would have to do is talk to the folks at home who are seeing the effects firsthand, and many people who live in rural communities will share this story. The effects of climate change are affecting them now. They include historic melting of our glaciers and snowcaps. Bob Cole, lifelong Port Alberni resident, was on CBC radio in June talking about the first time in his life that the glacier had melted in June. The increased flooding and boil water advisories are affecting municipal infrastructure. They're affecting our agriculture, our food security. Major droughts and forest fires are affecting our economy. The people in British Columbia and coastal British Columbia will always tell you that the health of our salmon is the health of our communities. It rained just in time in August this year, or we would have lost all of our salmon, which is our culture, our economy, and our lifeline. The ocean acidification in Bain Sound a couple of years ago killed our shellfish sector. We had Humboldt squid, a foreign species, showing up on our beaches in Tofino a couple of years ago. This is real. Climate change is here. I'm overjoyed that the Liberal government, as is evident in the throne speech, is embracing a new tone when it comes to climate change. But my constituents need more than a tone of change from their government. They need real action. Setting ambitious, accountable emission reduction targets with annual progress reports for meeting targets enshrined in Canadian law, like my colleague Linda Duncan presented an opportunity for us to do that just yesterday. The opportunity to strengthen Canada's environmental assessment process by including climate impact assessments, so new projects will not derail reduction targets. We need to highlight the work of environmental production and those that do it every day, including Coast Guard. Marine traffic control is a very important issue in my riding. We closed the Tofino station in Ucluelet. That was the station that communicated right across the Strait of Juan de Fuca to our Americans, to our allies, to protect mariners in one of the fastest growing marine areas of the economy of North America. We are looking at the closure of the Comox station in March. This station is very important to coastal British Columbians in terms of marine traffic safety because it's the only marine traffic control centre that's not in a tsunami subduction zone. We know a tsunami is going to happen. It's not if, it's when. So this is very important. We saw in the boat incident, Mr. Speaker, in Tofino, the Leviathan, that it was local knowledge and local people that saved lives. Aboriginal people have been ill-equipped with training and equipment to save lives on coastal British Columbia, and the Ahousaht people saved lives in Tofino. We had people in the Haida Gwaii stop the drifting Simishura from hitting the shore. We had people in Hartley Bay save lives when a BC ferries went aground on the central BC coast. We need to better support these nations and these coastal communities. My community and the communities of coastal British Columbia heavily rely on dealing with derelict vessels and dealing with pollution in our waters, as you can imagine. And we haven't dealt with derelict vessels. Gene Crowder presented a very good opportunity in the last sitting of this Parliament, in the 41st sitting, to deal with derelict vessels. We need national leadership on this to deal with the protection of the environment when vessels go aground, and also to make sure that we protect mariner safety. In my riding, and in Canada as a whole, more economic activity that works in conjunction with the environment is needed. Small business is the core of our economy and the natural leader of innovation. We didn't hear anything about small business in the speech to the throne, and we need to make sure that we do something about that. Raw log exports in my riding have gone up tenfold in 10 years, not double, tenfold in 10 years. And this is deeply affecting the economy of Port Alberni and Vancouver Island and for future generations. In the Alberni Valley, 1/3 of the children in Alberni Valley are living in poverty. This is unacceptable to everyone in my riding and unacceptable to everyone in this House. We have opportunities to invest in innovation. In Sweden, they're making car parts out of wood. And this morning, a forest company, announced the opportunity to make biofuel out of wood. This is the kind of innovation that we need and we can embrace. We need your help to do so. We have opportunities to invest in emerging sectors such as tech. The tech sector is the fastest growing sector in British Columbia. Higher learning, you know, what a better place to have higher learning with a natural surrounding like Courtenay-Alberni and the West Coast. We need to improve the role of Department of Fisheries and Oceans so that they're doing their job and get back to their mandate to protect our wild salmon. And so we have boots on the ground so we can help increase salmon, return of our salmon in coastal British Columbia. We need support for infrastructures, especially for BC ferries. And I'm hoping that this House will support those important calls to action. Mr. Speaker, the social challenges I started to express, 1/3 of the children in Port Alberni and in the Alberni Valley are living in poverty. Seniors in Oceanside and throughout our riding can't get access to just basic access to doctors. This is unacceptable. Back to the Alberni Valley. Alberni Valley, the life expectancy in the Alberni Valley is 4 years lower than the Canadian average. It's 40th in the world, just above the Dominican Republic. We've got some work to do. Affordable childcare would really help make a difference in the lives of people of Courtenay-Alberni. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We need a senior strategy. Having the highest median age for seniors in my riding in the nation, I see firsthand the results of not having a senior strategy, not having a strategy for dementia and Alzheimer's, and the importance of doing that. We need better supports for mental health, better supports for vets. We heard this every day on the door, the impact of a failed economy on our youth and youth unemployment, and ensuring that our young people have an economy that will take them into the future and make sure that they have a living wage and an affordable place to live. So, Mr. Speaker, there are opportunities for us to move forward, and I'd like to talk about some of those opportunities. Working with First Nations, working in collaboration with First Nations. You know, often the wealth of our country starts in rural communities, but it leaves rural communities. We need to have shared prosperity with Aboriginal people, with communities in my community and in your communities. In recent years, the New Chalmers won a very important court case in the Supreme Court of Canada, the right to catch and sell fish. This decision was awarded to them, and still the government has refused to sit at the table with the New Chalmers people and negotiate fairly. I call on this new government to do just that, to sit and have fair, reasonable negotiations. Mr. Speaker, really I'm excited to bring a message of hope, optimism and love from Courtenay-Alberni, a hope that this House will embrace our challenges and will stand together to work on our challenges together with your riding across this country to make sure we build a healthier, better, more prosperous Canada.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the member from Courtenay-Alberni. I would like to hear your thoughts about the Indigenous fishery and how giving a greater opportunity to share the natural resources of our collective lands would benefit the Indigenous communities, including lifting out of poverty children from those communities and giving pride to the parents to be those providers that we need them to be.
The honourable member for Courtenay-Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, in response to my friend from Winnipeg Centre, I do want to outline that court case is very important. You know, during the campaign, we had the chief from Heshquit, April Charlson, talk about the fact that they had cut welfare rates, income assistance rates, transportation had been gutted, so they couldn't even get home. It was $250 to get a water taxi from Heshquit to Tofino to buy groceries. And at the same time, they had won their court victory to catch and sell the very fish that were running right by their villages. And they couldn't even get access to those resources. So you're absolutely, my colleague is absolutely right. This is the solution. This is the opportunity to feed the people of Heshquit, feed the people of our communities, and to make sure that we empower people instead of mismanaging poverty. We have a historic opportunity right now to do just that, and I hope you'll join me in helping make that happen. Thank you.
Questions and comments. Question and commentaire. The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank my colleague from Courtenay-Alberni. My riding, Nanaimo Ladysmith, has also shared the trauma, I would say, and we heard it every night on the campaign doorstep, around seeing more and more raw log ships loading up off the front, the water line of our communities, and knowing that jobs are leaving our communities at that time. I understand 20,000 jobs, value-added, high-tech jobs around paper and wood manufacturing have been lost in our province since the Conservatives took power 10 years ago. So I'm hoping that you can elaborate to the member, through the chair, on the impact on your community around that loss of jobs. Thank you.
Member for Courtenay-Alberni.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the member from Nanaimo Ladysmith. You know, I have a personal connection to the forest sector. My great-grandfather was the paper maker of a mill in Ocean Falls on the central coast of British Columbia, where that town was a bustling community of 4,000 people. It produced Olympic swimmers back in the day. Today, that community has 75 people in it. I don't want to see that happen to Port Alberni. I don't want to see that to happen to any more coastal communities, especially communities in my riding. And Mr. Speaker, we have an opportunity to invest in innovation and technology, like I talked about. In our campaign, we talked about the NDP of investing $40 million into the forest sector to do just that. So I hope the government will be able to see the opportunity that we have with our forest sector and the opportunity to keep jobs in British Columbia, in Canada, instead of shipping raw logs out of our country, shipping jobs out of our country. These are enormous impacts on our communities. And again, we see the socioeconomic indicators. If you look at the socioeconomic indicators in Alberni Valley, you may see unemployment rate of 10%, but it doesn't truly reflect the true unemployment rate. The social assistance rate is 253%. Above the provincial average of British Columbia. And that's not okay. We need to do better. We have an opportunity. We have a thriving, beautiful opportunity to invest in our forest sector, and we're counting on the federal government, we're counting on the provincial government of British Columbia to join together, to work together in collaboration with business to change direction in our forest sector and make us more competitive so that we can make our mark on the world. And this is our opportunity, Mr. Speaker.
Comments. The honourable member for St. John, Rothsay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, again, I want to congratulate my colleague across the aisle on his speech. I think it was a passionate speech, and I certainly appreciate his comments. I, too, spent some time in Comox, Campbell River area in the aquaculture business, actually, and I certainly realize the beauty, Mr. Speaker, of that area, but yet the challenges that that region faces. I come from St. John, New Brunswick, and As I stated earlier this week in the House, that my city does lead the country, unfortunately, in child poverty. We have a rate in St. John at 31%. And, one thing I'm very proud of on behalf of the Liberal government, Mr. Speaker, is that the Canada Child Benefit will pull 315,000 children out of poverty across our country. And I asked my opponent if he also agrees that the Canada Child Benefit will be a great thing for his riding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Courtenay-Alberni.
Of course, we welcome making sure that we move money to people that in need, especially parents and children who need help. But I'll give you an example. I was in Parksville, and I knocked on a woman's door, Carlin. And Carlin pulled out her child care bill, and it was $750. She pulled out her paycheck. It was $750. She earns $10.72 an hour. So to my colleague across the way, it's not enough. $15 a day child care. A livable wage, a living wage. A living wage in Courtenay-Alberni is $17.22 an hour. So, Mr. Speaker, we need more. We need more action from the government. We certainly welcome you working with us on finding solutions to help deal with these problems and make sure that we make Carlin's life a lot better, a lot easier.